Hey everybody, welcome back to the Plays and Fades YouTube channel. I'm your host, Gordo Gambles, and welcome back to another full card DFS breakdown, this time for UFC 278. Now, if you guys know me, you know this is a very, very special card for me because I will be in attendance for this one. So a few things before we get started. First of all, it will be a longer video just because I want to dive into each and every matchup, make sure I give you guys all the information, the ways I'm targeting it. But don't worry, timestamps will be added. I'll make sure to do that. Also, no music. Just me, my voice. Hopefully you guys enjoyed enough because I have had some comments saying, you know what, get rid of the music. I trust you guys. I make these videos for you, so we're going to rock it without this week. But I mean, let's do it. We have 13 fights to cover, 13 fights to break down from top to bottom as we always do. Once again, I'm going to mention, please like the video, please subscribe to the channel. If you guys have any questions, message me on Twitter at GamblesGordo. I'd be happy to talk fights with you guys. But without further ado, let's get into it. As always, let's kick things off with my fight to target, my favorite fight to target from both sides. And you know what? It's an unfortunate one because it is the most expensive salary, but we have to talk about the GOAT, Harry Hunsucker versus Tyson Pedro this week. Tyson Pedro sitting a price tag of 9.5K, and that is where, you know what, probably almost all my ownership is going to be on. It's really hard to pay up and get someone at 9.5K, but when they're facing someone, Harry Hunsucker, you definitely have to get there. Pedro made his return to the UFC after 3 years, got the call against Ike Villanueva, disposed of him early, put up 109 fan points. That's exactly what you want to see. If Ike Villanueva wasn't easy enough, he's getting a guy in Harry Hunsucker who, despite all the memes about loving him, he may be one of the worst UFC fighters we have seen. Yes, I know that's harsh. Of course he can beat me up. Anybody who gets in the cage can beat me up, and I have nothing but respect to them. But putting it truthfully, we've seen 2 fights from him, 3 fights if we include the Contender Series, all of them losing in the very, very first round. We haven't seen anything from him. He averages 1.4 fan points per fight. Yeah, 2.8 over 2 fights in the UFC. I mean, the guy doesn't do much, but we haven't seen much from him. Off of tape, what we see is just insane power. 7-5. Every single one of this guy's fights have ended inside the distance. It doesn't stop there. Not only inside the distance, in the very, very first round. 12 fights, 12 first round wins and losses. Not only is he being finished quickly, but he also has the power to go out there and dispose of that weaker level of competition and get them out of there in his own right. The guy is violent. The guy is powerful. He's fun to watch. He is what you want to be, you know what, showing up for. I'm going live with this card, and despite the memes of Harry Hunsucker, like I'm excited to see him fight because I know it's going to be a war every time he steps in there for as long as it lasts. 6.7K, of course, he's a huge punt option because his win condition is probably a first-round knockout. But we all know that ownership's going over Tyson Pedro. Tyson Pedro has a layup spot, an opportunity to showcase his abilities, not only on the feet and add another knockout loss to the resume of Harry Hunsucker, but display some of that grappling. Tyson Pedro has an insane ground game that could really take advantage of the Hurricane Hunsucker this week. I think Pedro has so many options to get this done, so many options that score him above 100 points, and I do think that his, you know what, quick win bonus isn't off the table when you're facing Hunsucker either. So the ceiling for a guy in Tyson Pedro is super, super high. But because of that volatility and due to that Harry Hunsucker effect, I want both sides just because he's going to bring a pace. He's going to throw with bad intentions. And I do think a guy's getting knocked out in the very first round. All right, with that electrifying fight out of the way, let's go to the main event. Let's go talk about Kamaru Usman versus Leon Edwards. And this is a rematch. They fought each other in the past, albeit in 2015. It has been a long time. That was a fight that went to the decision, went to the scorecards. Edwards got taken down 6 times. Usman controlled him. Usman won pretty dominantly. With that being said, it's a very interesting matchup because I don't think that even with the improvements Usman has made, I still think he's going to be at a striking disadvantage. I think that the more technical, cleaner striker is going to be a guy in Leon Edwards. And Leon Edwards is huge. Not CEO, EPO huge like Usman, but more like tall and lanky, anthropomorphic advantages in this spot. With that being said, I do think that wrestling is still there for Kamaru Usman. I mean, he is a very dominant wrestler, good control time, good time takedowns, and we haven't seen anything to really fault him. He's been a very dominant champion. This guy averages 121.6 fan points, has never lost in the UFC, been a champ for a while. The guy's good. The reason I bring up Leon Edwards, because I do think Leon Edwards has a pretty safe floor as an underdog this week, because I do see this going the distance. I do see this being a fight that is largely contested, and for as long as he's standing on the feet, I mean, Leon Edwards is going to be the more technical guy. I would not put it past Leon Edwards to win a slower striking affair. However, with it being 5 rounds, with the pace that both these guys have, I do think this is a stackable fight. I do think you can take both Kamaru Usman at 9.1K and a guy in Leon Edwards at 7.1K. Both fighters are amazing fighters. They have great attributes in their own right. And I do think that Usman is going to have that wrestling advantage and probably the finish equity in this spot because Leon Edwards was wobbled by Nate Diaz. But I think that a large majority of the time, it does go to the scorecards. You do see a guy in Edwards put up a fight, make it close, Challenge Usman a bit on the feet, but either way, if I'm stacking it or not, I admire the floor that both these fighters possess. I think in cash, you probably want to have one of these two guys. And I think it's going to be a really high-level technical affair. But with that being said, the big takeaway from this thing is to let you guys know that I could be stacking this fight. I could have some Leon Edwards at 7.1K because if his floor is so high as a dog. I do think that if you are struggling for value, he definitely is a decent dog option at 7.1K. Speaking of cash, let's talk about my favorite cash target as a whole, Miranda Maverick, 9.3K. Yes, another hefty favorite. I will get to the underdogs, I promise. First things first though, Miranda Maverick, I do think she is the rightful hefty favorite in this spot. 9.3K may not be enough because this girl's got skills. Not only does he average 106 in her wins, but she's also going to have a rematch opportunity, a fight that she's already finished and won in the past against a girl in Shanna Young. Miranda Maverick is not only going to have the power on the feet, the brute force, but the wrestling, the top control, the ground and pound, and even some finish equity at the spot 9.3K. Either way, she's a fighter who has never been finished, has a really, really high floor in the spot, but I do think that in cash, she's one you can definitely pivot towards because she doesn't have that same hairy Hunsucker risk of being knocked out early on, but she instead has the ability to go out there, accrue takedowns, accrue control time, gather up those points over 3 rounds, and even throw in at finish there because I definitely think that is not off the table at all. Miranda Maverick, I think, is a great DraftKings option this week, especially in cash. Let's get to some dogs. It's finally time. Loosa is going to be my first one, 7.8K. Let's dive into this matchup. He's facing a guy in AJ Fletcher, a guy who had a decent start to his UFC showing, put up a good account for himself against Matthew Semmelsberger, and all power to him. Fletcher looked decent early on. He did fade over the stretch and show that he has some holes in his game. And Loosa is not perfect, has lost his only 2 UFC appearances, albeit to some great technical strikers in Munir Laziz and in Jack Della Maddalena, but he's getting a weird matchup in this spot. Loosa's going to be the bigger fighter. Despite just how Fletcher's built like a tank, Loosa is going to be probably the stronger fighter in my opinion, and I do think he has the ability to go out there and just win this fight at a high clip. Loosa's going to have the reach advantage, the striking advantage, the technical ability advantage, and the durability advantage. Loosa has eaten everything anyone has shown at him, and that is what really impresses me here is he's shown great cardio, great durability, and great heart to stay in these fights. AJ Fletcher, from what we've seen on tape, is he's an explosive guy, a guy who's able to go out there, land powerful takedowns, transition quickly, but he shows a lacking striking game. He gets hit, he struggles finding his range, but most importantly, when he can't get those takedowns, he's a completely different fighter. He is takedown dependent in my opinion because I don't think he has an explosive power to knock out Loosa like he has to other people. That being said, Fletcher has holes in his game when it comes to grappling as well. You could very easily put him on his back and keep him there for the entire fight, and I do think that Loosa has grappling upside in the spot. Putting that all together though, you just get a guy in Loosa who has more paths to victory, is a more trustworthy guy, and has more intangibles here. I think if you're backing AJ Fletcher, you're relying on that if factor. If he gets those takedowns and controls them. If he can get Loosa out of there. If he doesn't gas out. Whereas I think you have a guy in Loosa who is durable, has great cardio, has a striking advantage, power advantage on the feet, good takedown in his own right, and the ability to put Fletcher on his ass. I like Loosa, 7.8K. He's in that mid-tier as an underdog because he doesn't have that same super high ceiling as a guy like we'll talk about later. He has a very good floor. I think he wins his fight at a higher clip than a Santos does, albeit probably not with as high of a score. So give me Loosa, 7.8K. He's probably my favorite underdog to pick to win, but people below him, such as Leonardo Santos, may have a better ceiling. Let's dive right into that one. Leonardo Santos, 7.3K. I do think he is a really fun fighter at this time. At this day and age, he's an old man. 42 at lightweight is no easy task. We've seen from him in the past some cardio defects, some durability defects, and this is a spot where, although he may have some holes in his game, he's going to have the advantage to exploit his great technical ability against someone here in Jared Gordon. Jared Gordon, although a good fighter, a good grinder, has been knocked out, has been submitted, has been finished. And if you're facing a guy in Leonardo Santos, you have to be worried about that. Leonardo Santos, in my opinion, is probably around a 1.5 or bust. He's going to come out shot out of a cannon. He's going to have the striking advantage, the power advantage, and the submission advantage here, all to which you could get a finish against Jared Gordon. With that being said, if he doesn't get that finish, and this is why I say if, although if he doesn't get that finish, what does he have left? Probably not. He probably gets finished in his own right by a guy in Jared Gordon. That's why I talk about his ceiling. His ceiling is a first round finish, potential knockdowns, potential quick win bonus, but his floor is almost non-existent. Gordon can take him down, wear on him. Let's not forget they're in Salt Lake City with higher elevation, and really could make this a tough, long night for Leonardo Santos. I think that the ceiling is there, the path to victory is there, and the opportunities are going to be there. Can Leonardo Santos capitalize on them? Because he does only have about 5-6 minutes of gas. So super volatile fight. Give me the guy with more explosiveness. Give me the GPP dog in Leonardo Santos. You know what? I'm liking the chat about dogs right now. Let's keep it rolling. Daniel De Silva facing guy in Victor Altamarino. 7.6K for De Silva. I think this is a really fun fight. De Silva's a guy we haven't seen much from. I mean, he went out there, showed amazing success in that first round against Molina, and then died. Showed that he had decent success and then put himself into a leg lock in, 30 seconds against the bad Figgy. There's a lot to be desired from this kid. I think the talent is there, the technical ability is there, the will to win, the power, all this stuff is there, but he's missing some durability, some cardio, some fight IQ, some stuff that could be exploited by some higher level echelon fighters, to which I don't know if Victor Altamarino is one. I think that in that very first round, in that first, let's say 6-7 minutes, once again, he's going to have opportunities to finish. He's going to have power. He's going to have the striking advantage. He's going to have the aggressiveness. He's going to have some takedown upside. And I think that he has the ability to go out there and get that first round finish. Become optimal at 7.6K. But at what risk? When you're rostering this guy, you have to be wary of his fight IQ and his durability. Altamarino, despite not being a very good favorite, he has the ability to weather the early storm and get his own finish later on. I think that we have to be careful because, Altamarino's averaging 9.7 points. The guy's numbers aren't blowing anybody out of the water, but it's his ability. It's his future. It's his opportunity, and I do think he's going to have opportunities this weekend. So 7.6K, another very volatile dog, but one I'm really taking a look at in De Silva. All right, let's talk about the most fun fight in the card. The most anticipated matchup, in my opinion. The one that I'm looking forward to the most, being a guy is going to be watching from the crowd. Let's talk about Merab versus Aldo. Merab Dvalishvili is the plays and fades icon. He is our favorite fighter from a DFS perspective. This guy has made us bank. And we will always love him, not only from a betting perspective, but to watch him. The guy's a fun fighter. His stats are unreal. 7.3 takedown average, 7-fight win streak, and the guy is just fun to watch because his DraftKings scores are also incredible. In 5 of his wins, he has above 125 points. This guy is an absolute legend, but he's facing the real legend in Jose Aldo. Jose Aldo's a guy with historically the best takedown defense in the UFC. He is a ex-champion, a legend, and a guy who's really got a second wind in his career. This is a big step up for Merab, but also a huge test for Jose Aldo. Jose Aldo has to go out there. He has to defend takedowns. He has to deal with his constant pressure, his constant forward pressure, and he has to deal with this for 3 rounds. The cardio of Jose Aldo has always been in question. Can he sustain this against Merab Dvalishvili at elevation in Salt Lake City for 3 rounds? That's the real question. It's a really electrifying matchup, a really fun one to watch, and I do think that it is a 50-50 fight. Can Merab get him down? Can Merab keep him there? Can Merab break him down the stretch? Or does Jose Aldo find the button? Does Jose Aldo keep it upright and knock out Merab? Talk about the same way that Marlon Moraes almost did. Moraes had this guy dead to rights. Jose Aldo probably finishes in that spot, and we saw that Jose Aldo still has his power. Just ask Rob Font. It's an insane matchup. I want ownership on both sides, but I'm leaning towards Merab Dvalishvili just because his DraftKings equities scores another 120 points? Because we all know Jose Aldo's going to get back up. We all know that Merab's going to have to take him down again. And I think that at this elevation, at the age of Jose Aldo, he probably breaks him down the stretch. I do think it's completely reasonable to say that Merab could score 130 points here, no problem. But at what risk? What percentage of the time does Jose Aldo go out there, nuke Merab, and win in his own right and score another 90, 100 points? It's a super interesting matchup. I think from a pick perspective, I'm going to lean Jose Aldo. But if we're talking about ownership, probably going to be 60-40 Merab because his ceiling is so high. I want lots of ownership on this. I'm going to be 85-90% owned on the fight as a whole, so I'm hoping for a war. I'm hoping Morales pushes forward, and we just have to see, will that be to his own detriment, or will he just continue the success that the machine has had and add to his superhuman DFS numbers? That's not the only big fight, though. Paulo Costa, Luke Rochhold. Pretty simple for me. Luke Rochhold is coming back after a long, lengthy layoff, not in the prime of his career anymore, and what we've seen from him recently is it's going to be a long night for him. He likes to have these fiery exchanges, and I think he's going to get them against Paulo Costa, but Paulo Costa has a brick for a head. He looks to be taking this insanely seriously, and if he keeps exchanging with Luke Rochhold, he's going to find the chin. Paulo Costa has great technical ability, great power, and a great ground game to back. I think that he's an all-around very good mixed martial artist, and he is definitely going to have the opportunity to go out there and finish Luke Rochhold this weekend. What we've seen from Costa is he hasn't taken things seriously. Missed weight a lot, drank wine against Israel Adesanya, and hasn't been fighting to the fullest of his abilities. I think he's taking things seriously now. He's in shape. It looks like he's going to make weight. And Luke Rochhold's going to give him the fight he wants. He's going to give him the opportunity to shut his lights out, to which Paulo Costa could do at any minute. We've seen decent cardio from Costa, decent durability, decent ability to just win these fights, and I think he's going to have the opportunity to do so against Luke Rochhold here. Give me Paulo Costa all day, 8.7K. I do think he gets the finish. All right, a final underdog for us. We're going to look at Marcin Tybura, 7.2K. And I know you're looking at the site seeing Alexander Romanov and saying, wow, 110 fan points averaged. Put up above 125 points 40% of the time. He's a killer. He is a great fighter. But let's take it back a second. Who is he beating? Chase Sherman first round. I mean, he was the biggest favorite in like UFC history almost. Jared Vanderaa. I mean, easy win for a guy with the style of Alexander Romanov who can take him down, can dominate him. Roque Martinez. He made him look like absolute dog water. 127 points, dominated from pillar to post, threw him all over the place. Jared Lima, not a bad win, but a guy who's been submitted by everybody. Submitted by forearm choke. It wasn't even like an actual choke. He just put his arm on his forearm. He finished him there. Not the best look. When he actually faced resistance, when he faced a past his prime grappler, but a very good grappler in Juan Espino, he struggled. He won that fight due to pretty much disqualification almost. He ended that fight early because in my opinion, he quit. He took a shot to the groin, and where those always hurt, he didn't even give it a bother to get back up. He stayed there, he laid down, he took his win, he went to the scorecards. I think Espino was breaking him there. I think that his cardio was being exposed. I think that Espino was facing him resistance, and he wasn't able to dominate like he has before. Romanov is 16-0. He hasn't faced much resistance, and I do think Tybura is going to give him that resistance here. Tybura is a great grappler in his own right. Gone the distance with likes of Fabricio Verdum and other good grapplers. He's a decent grappler in his own right. I think the longer this fight goes, the more Alexander Romanov struggles to take down and dominate Tybura the way he has to other people, the more he gasses himself out. The more he makes it possible for Marcin Tybura to advance forward and win these fights, win these striking exchanges, take him down, gas him out. And then you add in the elevation portion of all this, I think it is a winnable fight for Marcin Tybura. At 7.2K, a win against Alexander Romanov, probably being a beatdown over 3 rounds, scores well. I think he's very, very live to do so. I'm going to have some Marcin Tybura at 7.2K, and I just think it's a really, really fun scrap. But it's always scary to bet against King Kong Romanov. But with that, let's round out the rest of the card. I'll be starting off with Amir Albazi facing Little Figgy, the not-so-good Figgy, the Walmart Figgy, if you want to. Amir Albazi, 9.2K. I've seen a lot of very good things from this guy, and I'm really impressed, if I'm honest. He seems to be a killer. Very smart technically. He does a lot of things very, very right, and I think this is his fight to lose. Little Fig is not very good. Little Fig has struggled a lot. He got dominated, or control grappled and lost pretty convincingly to Malcolm Gordon. Amir Albazi is going to do all that and some. He's going to have the ability to take him down, grind him out, threaten submissions, beat him on the feet, be the better technical fighter, be the better minute winner. I think he has him covered everywhere. 9.2K. I love this guy. I think he goes out there and puts on another dominant showing on Saturday. Woodson Saldana, I mean, you have to lean Woodson. I think he's going to be the better striker, better technical striker, and probably win a decision, but what's his win equity? What's his ceiling? What can he go out there and do that will score more than a guy in Paulo Costa is right below him? A guy like Jared Gordon who has that 3rd round finish potential. I don't see it happening as convincingly. I even think Saldana may even be able to keep it close. I do think Woodson wins. I do think at 8.8K. He's a guy with a decent floor, but I'm liking the other guys around him a lot more. Orichi Lang versus Jay Perrin. That is a fun scrap, and you know what? I'm leaning towards the Perrin side. I think he has the ability to go out there, push him against the cage, grind out Orichi Lang. I think the better and more technical striker is Orichi Lang. I think the longer this stays at distance, the more it favors him. And I think it's going to need a pretty perfect game plan from Jay Perrin. With that being said, I think he does it. I think he has the IQ, the game plan, the ability, the execution to go out there, grind out a win against Orichi Lang. With that being said, how much does that score? I think both of this is a fight fade for me, just like the next one. Hudalova versus Yanan, that's a complete fade for me. 8.3K, 7.9K. It's sandwiched around Merab versus Aldo. I can't get to that. I can't find a reason to back them against everybody else. I think this one goes the distance. I think it's relatively boring. And whereas Yanan has takedown upside, I think even at that, scores about 80 in a win. Fade that one. Fade Orichi Lang. Although I think if you do need a decent underdog, Jay Perrin isn't looking too bad. And with that, the UFC 278 DFS breakdown is complete. Now's the time. I mean, if you guys enjoyed the video, hit the like button down below, subscribe to the channel, DM me on Twitter at GamblesGord if you have any questions, and look out for my other content. Full card betting breakdowns, short 5-minute best bet videos, DFS breakdowns with the Pub Sport Radio guys, prop drop covering Thrive Fantasy, use code GORDO, price picks, and underdog. All of that can be found on my channel down below. And don't forget the Dana White Contender Series breakdowns. Tons of content. I'm grinding. I'm really looking forward to seeing the fights in person on Saturday. And hopefully you guys have enjoyed what you're listening to. Tail me on it and make some money with me. Good luck, everybody.